Welcome to Season 3 of Malevolent Autopsy. I'm your host, Queen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so excited to be here with you all. Now, let me warn you, the show contains major spoilers for everything in Malevolent as of the day this episode is published, so if you're not caught up, I'm not liable. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to ask my lovely co-host, what part of Arthur's body are you betting on getting injured this week?
Howdy, hello. My name is Vol Control, he, him pronouns. And this week, I think Arthur's feelings are gonna get hurt. Should be interesting. But,
Yeah.
we've been getting some juicy chapters. Last chapter was 17 minutes. This chapter is 20 minutes. And we got so many voice submissions this week, so I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. And I'm gonna summarize this chapter in 10 words or less. Do you think I can do it?
Okay. Yes, I totally believe in you.
Okay. Yorick returns. Bone Citadel arrives. John Darkworld secret reveal. I think that's the whole episode, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the whole episode.
Did I miss anything?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I was just thinking...
You hit it on the head.
When we were re-listening before we started recording, I was just thinking that there's so much crazy shit that happens at the back end of this episode that you forget that it starts with John saying that Faro's not in the dark world and Arthur emotionally processing that. There's a lot of good stuff at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, it's insane. And like, for how big this chapter was, not just in volume as far as like the long nature of the chapter being 20 minutes, we have 21 people in our audience right now, which is, I'm learning there's a pattern. I think more people come to Autopsy at the end of a chapter, at the end of a part, rather.
Do you think?
Yeah, because I think people are, first of all, there's no vote. Which, like,
you would think that
right
we would have smaller audiences because they come here to listen to us discuss the polls, don't they?
Okay, I thought that's what I was making a podcast about, but I'm starting to think people don't come to actually hear about the polls. I think people come to the live chat to scream about their feelings about the chapter. So, with a 20-minute episode, I think we have a packed house in here, and everyone is here to share their big feelings, and we get a lot of voice submissions tonight. We have another really big number of them.
Yep.
So I think everyone's also here to hear their own voice submission and how you respond to those. And I know we have a lot of them, so I don't want to take up too much time at the front of the episode discussing the chapter, but I do know that we have carrots and sticks to discuss.
Yes, let's get into it.
Okay, Vol, what was your carrot for this week?
Well, this episode was like a whole fucking carrot farm. Like, just full of carrots. Lousy with carrots. But if I had to pick one golden carrot, it would be the word bodies. Plural. That I think that's my carrot this week.
Yeah, so you're excited about plural bodies?
I remember when I first listened to the chapter when it dropped, and you and I were listening to it together, and just bodies, just back and forth. And I think that it's not been an inevitability. Like, we have, there has been theorizing and discussion about whether it could happen. It's been teased in a way at certain points, but them separating is no longer their major goal necessarily, because like John said, he said that he can't imagine being separated from Arthur at this point. And so to finally get the drop of like, it's gonna happen, it has to happen for them to exit the dark world, is like screaming my head off. That's crazy.
I think it's interesting. I know that we definitely have never been guaranteed that we will see them get separate bodies in Malevolent, because I have been a very vocal proponent of not wanting John to get a body.
Right.
So Like I have never seen anything to the contrary before this chapter that really led me to believe that he would. There was nothing definitive that you could point to, for me at least, even looking retrospective, like when I'm looking back at previous parts and chapters, I really never got the sense that it was coming. I mean, you can always find a way to get there, but that's kind of in the same way you can find a way to get to any ending if you want to.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting that mechanically they have to be separated to leave the dark world. It's very interesting way to set that up.
Very interesting. Yeah. And I loved that in the episode when they have come so far that when Yorick says that they have to be separated in their own bodies, both Arthur and John have like a little bit of like trepidation. They're a little bit anxious about that. And it's just like total turnaround from where they started.
Well, you know, it's funny. Bird says in the chat, I want them to swap, make Arthur the brain entity. That was actually my first, guess when we were listening to the chapter together. Vol and I live react when we listen to the chapter just with each other in our personal server. And my first thing was, oh my God, are they going to swap? Are they going to have Arthur be the eyes? Like, how is this going to work? And then when I realized they were more concretely going to have separate bodies, I also wanted to mention, like, along the lines of bodies, they've had multiple opportunities to separate and they've never taken them.
Yeah.
And it's been very clearly partially of their own volition. Like the very first time it was definitely that they didn't want to be separated. But the second time it was a lot more like you could make the excuse that it was more about beating Larson than being separated.
Yeah.
So this is really their third opportunity for separation. And I think they feel like they're being forced into it. Like,
they don't really have a choice
unless you separate.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting. I'm really curious to see how this pans out.
Me too. What was your stick?
So it's not really a stick because I, being the drama and angst enjoyer that I I cannot fucking wait. But boy, howdy, I can't wait to hear what Arthur has to say about John hunting exclusively Arthurs. That's gonna be I can't even imagine what direction that conversation is gonna take, and we still have to wait a few days before we're actually recording Autopsy early, so it's even longer before we get to listen to the next chapter.
Yeah, Fish in the chat has mentioned that both your carrot and stick are just variations on the word bodies.
Yeah.
That stick is a carrot, says Bird.
Yeah. Queen, what was your carrot?
My carrot was a predictable carrot. I think it would be considered a carrot for everybody. But it goes something like this. That's it? You don't get applause for every jump. Where's the fuck yeah, we did it when you've earned it? That was just so good.
That was so
needed
cute.
That moment.
Yeah.
I needed the acknowledgement of John's fuck yeah, we did it. And I needed that very brief and very short-lived moment of levity where they acknowledge that's like a hallmark of their journey. And I just really loved it. I also really enjoyed the performance of it, and how I really think season 5 and 6 are some of Harlan's most convincing and beautiful snippets of acting in general, not just like voice acting, but just like the way it's so believable. I don't know. And that exchange was so heartfelt and so earnest between two friends. I loved it.
Yeah. And it felt like, sort of a meta joke, but in a like referential way of their relationship. And I really loved that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that was the first laugh of this chapter, I think, but we got 3 Arthur laughs in this episode. I counted them because they are so precious that we have to save
add
them.
It to the laugh compilation.
Yes.
Somebody call Amanda.
Yes. On the other hand, what was your stick this week?
I have a stick, and then I have like something masquerading as a stick.
Okay.
My stick is, of course, predictably, Arthur's reaction, similar to yours.
Mm-hmm.
I am dreading how Arthur's going to react. Either it's going to be one of two extremes, or it's going to be something completely out of left field that I could never predict.
Right.
And at this point, I don't like any of my options. I don't like Arthur having a meltdown, and I don't like Arthur acting like it's basically no big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm going to love. And when I say I don't like it, I mean it's going to make me feel things, not like I'm not happy with it in the story.
Yes.
I just mean it's going to be so hard to go through. I am not, opposite of Vol, I am not an angst enjoyer, which is funny because why am I here? Why am I malevolent? I am a kind of person who, I don't get the perspective of people who are like, yes, I'm going to take my blorbo and torture them and torment them, and that's how I show my affection. No, I like my babies to
have nice
ride
things
off into the sunset and live happily ever after. And so I'm in the wrong genre, but
they've got to earn it. It's just like John's celebratory shout. It's like you got to earn the happy ending.
You do not get to tell me they have to earn it. It's been 5 whole seasons of agony, almost nothing but agony. They've well earned it. I've just accepted this is the genre that I'm in, and like it will just be a constant punch in the gut. Mm-hmm. But those little moments of like the laughing and the triumphant reunion with Yorick, those are kind of what bolster me through all of the agony and hell and pain.
Yeah. The hope.
And so I'm holding on to those. Yeah. And the stick bug masquerading as the stick is my absolute shame and embarrassment at being completely wrong that John wouldn't get a body in Malevolent. I absolutely mortified that I have been so like, no, that's not going to happen. I think I know better than anybody, which is silly. No, I never directly said that, but like, I always get anxious about making predictions and then being proven wrong. But I think in this one especially, it really was a blow to my ego because
you're so silly.
Well, I just, you know what? I have a strong feeling about the way I see it. And like, I'm not mad that it's going to happen. I just am embarrassed that I talked so much about it.
We all have our pet theories. And Fish in the chat says, we still don't know if John's getting in that corpse. And I remember right after the chapter dropped, tons of people were running to poll chat, even though there's not a poll. We're running to poll chat to say, like, we're not putting John in that body, all right? Like, we are not going to put him through that.
It's so funny. I've been keeping an eye on that, and I think it is hysterical to say that we're not going to do that. I think fans that vote, let me phrase this differently. Fans that vote would rather have John in a body able to physically interact with the world and Arthur than they would care about him going into a body he just doesn't want to be back in. And I think that because of how vocal the group of people who really want Arthur and John to have a physical interaction are. I think that desire overrides the principle that they keep saying they don't want to happen. Yeah. I think it's a talk a big game thing, but when it comes down to it, are you really telling me that you're going to sacrifice your blorbos, maybe quote unquote hugging to
the quotes?
I just, you know what? I just am so not into the, I'll just say that like, I think I do a lot of protecting myself in the same way I did with Parker, where I just refuse to acknowledge that there's a possibility where they hold hands or hug or get to see each other or get a happy like goodbye or whatever, because that way if it doesn't happen, I won't be horribly disappointed. Yeah. So I just refuse to hope for it, and in fact think it just straight up won't happen. Yeah. And that's how I protect myself.
No, I think that's smart. Should we start listening to our very normal voice submissions? See how normal everyone is being about this chapter?
Let's see how normal people are right now. Oh, great. We're going to start with a good one.
Good evening, Autopsy listeners. This is Luna Maria with she, they pronouns. I'm here to talk about chapter 270, which had the wonderful introduction of the Bone Citadel and the Bone Throne. Now, many of you thought I was going to be overwhelmingly feral at this reveal, but as our wonderful queen declared, we must be demure and cutesy and lovely about this. Autopsy is a show of high regale, so I'm here to tell you calmly about my feelings. The Bone Citadel is an absolute wonder of poetic description, and the soundscaping and audio was absolutely beautiful in this chapter, especially when we had the wonderful return of our dear character Yorick, who is inspired by Hamlet's Shakespeare from a quote that Arthur mentions in the episode where he appears. The Bone Throne is an absolutely a delightful addition, along with John's body atop it, which I'm completely normal about and have no significant feelings to add about it. I'm so thankful for all of you to be here as we discuss this wonderful chapter, and we all feel overwhelmingly calm and normal about it. Additionally, I elaborated on many of my feelings regarding this absolutely astounding and intellectual chapter in the Chapter 54 channel. I look forward to all of you having a wonderful, invigorating discussion on this. Good evening, Autopsy.
I appreciate your submission, Luna Maria, and how calm it was.
Yeah, that was really well thought out, well put together. Yeah, yeah, definitely no one being crazy feral when this episode dropped.
I mentioned, for context to the public, I mentioned in the autopsy channel, my pet peeve, my one pet peeve is screaming into the mic and like blaring out the levels. I can't stand it. It's a personal thing. It has nothing to do with like the people who do it. I understand emotion takes hold of us all, but like I just auditorily, I can't handle it. And so people were like, well, I don't know what I'm going to submit now.
Shall we see how our next submission sounds?
Let's I'm so tentative about clicking on these. Let's hear the next one.
Hey y'all, Slate here, they, them, she, her, and Queen told me that I was not allowed to just scream incoherently into the microphone for, I don't know, 10, 20 seconds or so. So instead, I will be presenting all of the things that ran through my head as I was listening to the chapter in order. From the top. Oop. Oof. Oh god. Oh my god. Jesus fuck. Oh my god. What the fuck. Ew, what the fuck. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Ugh. Wait, oh my god. Holy shit, oh my god. Aw. Hey, what the fuck. Holy shit. Oh no. Fuck yes. Oh ho ho, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. Oh god. Oh my god. Fuck. Fuck yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fuck yeah, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. Hell yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Slate. That was genuinely so delightful. I loved that. And I also dead ass could follow along with the chapter as you reported that. It was great.
Very succinctly put, and we appreciate your restraint.
Mizra says it's like the Vizier translating for Sean. Oh, another really good moment for Malevolent.
Incredible. I think we have one more reaction message before we get some more discussion based.
Hi everyone, Luna Maria, she, they, what the oh my god. Okay. The fucking Bone Citadel is fucking here. The Bone Throne is fucking here. And we didn't just get that, we also got John's fucking oh my god. Listen, guys, also Arthur, I've been pushing up the road when I couldn't tell Bella when I hoped would go, that man's about to come out. Oh my god, I think so. Oh my god, you guys. I'm losing my mind. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. Um um uh the fact he built the cathedral out of Arthur's bones, like he wanted to be inside Arthur again, inside his bones, like what the fuck? And then Yorick, my sweet baby back. My sweet baby Yorick is back. That's their trans gay son. He's back. Guys. my god, this is the greatest episode of Malevolent ever.
Yeah, that's more along the lines of what I
Mhm.
expected from
Yeah.
Luna.
Yeah, Luna, you can dress him up, but you can't take him anywhere.
Yeah, that goes along with it.
I thought that Luna's interpretation of what Arthur was saying very interesting because I read it very differently. I thought that Arthur was saying that Parker saw that apathy threatening to overcome him and possibly even to the point that Arthur might end his life, and Parker always tried to show him that he saw him and bring him back from the brink.
Yeah, I think that Malevolent is so unique in that it is a show that is very, I would say, very well known to not be intentionally queer. Like, Harlan has been pretty
Mm-hmm.
explicit, and rightfully so, about wanting everyone to know, like, this is not a love story between John and Arthur. They are
Right.
not romantically going to be involved with each other, and like that's the canon of it. But everyone is allowed to have their interpretations of how they want to read the text. And I think for that reason, it can feel so exciting and so validating to hear a lot of the same things that queer people go through and a lot of the same journeys, and to be able to identify that in a story that, you know, has canonical roots in like really prioritizing like male friendship and
Mm-hmm.
platonic love. I think it really, more than anything, shows how similar everybody is, and
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
really everybody goes through the same fucking journey. It's about being able to see each other and acknowledge each other and understand like you don't have to be queer to understand that that journey of discovery and identity and love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. I also liked that Luna in a very normal and reasonable way talked about how John built this, citadel of Arthur's bones so that he could in some way symbolically like recreate the feeling of being one with Arthur. And I'm curious to know if that's going to be something that's like confirmed, something that John shares. I'm curious.
Yeah, I am too. And I think there's so much that we still have to learn. I think just learning what he did is not nearly enough. I
Yeah.
think we have a long way to go before we get John's full story. But I am now thinking back to the fact that when we started Da Capo, I think people were predicting what they thought John did and what his secret was. And I would be really interested to go back and look at those predictions.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to that episode, I highly recommend doing so now, because it will be very funny to listen
Yeah.
back to what we all thought.
Yep. Very funny.
And I know we have an email submission, right?
Yes, we do. I'll read it. Hiya, I'm Nukuome, he, him, and I don't have the time or throat strength this week to do a voice note, and I only really have disconnected thoughts. Anyways, so, number 1, Yorick, big bug, arthropod. My son is so autistic, he had to become the bug, and I've never been happier for him. Numero 2, the way I pictured John on the throne is like Hollow Knight spoilers, how you find the Pale King's corpse. Note 2.5, why is John such a fucking diva, laid across his throne like the queen he is? Topic 3, I called it. I had the theory that he killed Alt Arthur's, but goddamn, my boy pulled a cane and killed all the alts of his bestie. This is so sad, frowny face. Observation 4, confirmation that the cloak is in fact alive and moves around as an appendage or extremity. Point 5, Arthur doesn't feel like he's good enough, even for Thoreau, and must keep going. Maybe that's what he needs to let go of. Maybe he needs to fully accept what he is, a human. And humans can never be perfect, which is something John has already accepted and spoke of, but now we see Arthur still needs to accept that being himself is enough, that people will love him for who he is now. My poor Blorbo. And I think this is what Harlan was really trying to set up in Da Capo, that he doesn't feel welcomed or wanted anywhere, even when he's explicitly told he is. To paraphrase a quote from Little Shop of Horrors, girl, you're struggling with low self-image. Or maybe he just needs to let go of John. That would suck. I like my idea better. Joking. Concern 6. I have a sneaking suspicion that Arthur will almost divorce John at the start of the next episode for doing the exact same thing as Cain, only for John to start pointing out how he and Arthur are narrative foils and, ooh, he better not mention the killing daughters thing because that will piss him off. Harlan said he didn't want he didn't want to do any more divorces, so I don't think it will happen right now. I think Arthur will let it go, but what that actually means is he'll absolutely not let it go, and they'll have an actually really, really bad divorce at a later date. Maybe in the next couple of episodes. They better not start fighting at the end, because I swear to God I will not survive that. Last 7. Arthur will have to do/give something to the Dollmaker, most likely, in exchange for a body. Predicting he's going to lose that arm with the scratch, Darkther/Oscar style. It has been pointed out already as something the Dollmaker would want, so... Itty bitty actual last thought, number 8. We're getting bone-thrown, heartfelt conversations, finally at a convenient time, but I am very scared for next chapter. Arthur is now quite literally the only one that can stop Cain. Rip, Darkther, you will be missed. Pensive emoji. That's it. Sorry it's long, but have an amazing autopsy, y'all.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for your submission, Ukwome. And like, to reiterate, I know that a lot of people don't like submitting their voice and stuff, but those emails are also a great platform and we really enjoy getting them.
Yeah, I really love the format that you put it in with all the numbers being numbered differently. It was very funny to me.
It's very good. Yeah, and I want to say, like, the whole concept of John and Arthur having this discussion and then Arthur seeming fine with it and then exploding about it later would totally make sense.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I am the most nervous for, because that is just, it's really hard. You can pull that out at any time and have that bomb drop when it needs to be dropped.
Yeah.
And it's well, for maximum damage.
Yeah, and I didn't really think about the concept that John, like, killing all of the Arthurs is very much like Cain killing all of his other selves. It's interesting, and I'm really curious how Cain and his deal with John fits into all of this.
Well, I was talking to chat and I was looking through transcripts and everything, and we learned that John had to go pretty low before he would bother calling out to Cain. And then Cain made him do something or several somethings. He says, the things you did for me, in order to get out of the dark world. So my opinion, my speculation from reading that is that John had to have done some pretty terrible things. And since we know he confirmed he didn't kill anybody but Arthur when he was in the dark world, my guess is that he killed all of the Arthurs that were available to him in the dark world. And when he called out to Cain, Cain was like, oh, well, you've done all that already. You might as well kill the ones that aren't in the dark world yet.
Ooh.
And those would be those whose timelines haven't ended yet, or who just for some reason weren't in the dark world. And Cain giving him that access to kill the rest of the Arthurs that, you know, for example, might have had Furrow a little bit longer, or might have made some different choices, or dealt with his relationship with Bella differently, or something else. So, like, John now making Arthur, our Arthur, the only Arthur left, and effectively taking away all of those Furrow's potential fathers.
Yeah.
I think that would just twist the knife further. Now, that's obviously not completely confirmed as to what happened, but considering we know John had to do something pretty terrible even before he before he called for Cain, I want to believe that John did make this choice to kill all of these Arthurs himself. I don't think this was something purely done because of Cain. I also don't think that Cain was the only one responsible for, like, the Bone Citadel. That's pretty fucking dramatic, but I could totally see John in the dark world at his lowest, killing all these Arthurs and building this bone throne all by his lonesome.
Yeah. Thanks for that devastating theory, Queen. That's great. That's great.
You're welcome.
But I totally agree, and we had talked about this earlier in the week, that I didn't want John to be absolved of responsibility by you know, this all being because Cain made him do it. I want John to be culpable for how low he went, and I think that's really important.
I think it would be really cheap to just blame it all on Cain.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten to blame... Cain shares a lot of the blame for shit that's happened in Malevolent.
Yeah.
He's definitely taken the brunt of the fault here. So I don't think he needs more. I think it makes a lot more sense if John made this decision. And I also think it falls in line with his shame, right? Because I think John would definitely be using Cain as a scapegoat to make himself feel better.
Yeah.
And to justify his decisions more if he didn't, like, if it also wasn't his decision. But clearly some part of this, a large part of this, I want to say the majority of this was all him.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's too romantic in the sort of like metaphysical sense of building this citadel of Arthur's bones. Cain didn't inspire him to do that. Nobody told John to do that. John did that because that's what he felt. That's what he wanted to do.
Yeah. Shall we continue?
Let's do.
Autopsy, Rosesofenvy, she, her, and what a gut punch of a chapter. It just did not stop. And I could talk for hours and hours about all the little details here, but that's what this podcast is for. So I'm going to keep my message to 90 seconds, and I'm going to talk about the two things that have really stuck out to me. The first one being how important fairy tales seem to be to the story of Malevolent. And maybe not important is the right word, but I remembered in part 13 that we have the woodcutter in the trees, and then we have Three Billy Gets Gruff, we've got Jack and the Beanstalk, and in the Dark World we could have Rapunzel and Pied Piper. And I don't have the time, unfortunately, to go back and analyze right now, but I'm just going to put a pin in that and move on to my next point, which is my dearly beloved Peter Parker gang. Once again, haunting the narrative. I deeply, deeply appreciate how much Harlan can give us about a character who has been dead since the beginning of the show. The specific quote that I have just been rotating is Arthur saying, "Parker saw it in me. He'd call me on it, but he never pushed. He'd say just enough to let me know, to give me a shot across my bow, as he put it, to let me know he saw it. First of all, I will be writing fic about this, oh my god." And in the times we've had Parker mentioned, as we know from Da Capo, he calls Arthur on his shit. He does not let him get away with it. And Arthur knew, and he let him. I can't stop thinking about the 3 minutes we have with Parker and Da Capo, and how in those moments we learned so much. We learned so much about him and a little bit of Arthur and how they interacted, how well they knew each other, how much they trusted each other. Even with Arthur being so closed off, Parker didn't push, but he let Arthur know that he knew, and that if Arthur wanted to talk, he was there. And the other thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that Arthur mentions Parker after talking about Bella, talking about Daniel, and we have fatherhood playing in the background, which of course, emotional. He viewed Parker as family. We feel that weight of Parker's impact throughout this, and I wish I had the time in both this message and right now to write more about it.
Thank you, Rose. Really appreciate your submission and your love and dedication to Parker, because yes, he was such a beautiful surprise.
Yeah, every time Arthur mentions Parker and we get another little tiny scrap, a little tiny crumb of their past together, it's such a treat.
I love it. And Rose, just so you know, everybody loves hearing from you in all iterations, but also everybody is going buck wild for you writing more. So good luck on your big bang, and we are all very excited to see what else you put out once you're all caught up there.
I thought it was really interesting that Rose mentioned the fairy tale connection. I've seen a few people talking about that, and I believe our next message also touches on that.
Yes, that is an email, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I can read this one.
Okay.
You took a big one on. I'll take this one on. Hi all, my name is Ajax, and that obviously is not me, actually. I'm Queen, but I'm reading an email from Ajax. She, her. I want to scream. When I listened to this episode in the middle of a 4-hour flight, I was dying to be able to ramble about it in the eel pits. There were some big revelations this episode. Arthur's response to John about Pharaoh being in the Dark World. Yorick the floating crab was the bell ringer. Yorick having a plan to get the boys out of the Dark World. And finally, the reveal of the Citadel of Bone and who John had been hunting while in the Dark World. Everyone else will chat about that, so I won't hang on it too much. I want to talk about something else. Bedtime stories. I'm noticing a theme of fairy tales or bedtime stories appearing in gruesome ways in the Dark World, starting with the scalp and hair on the escape from the Black Tower, which made everyone immediately think of Rapunzel. Then we met the rat catcher who used a pipe to help in his crusade against the rat-filled humans. This made me think of the Pied Piper. They stumble upon a farm and a farmer while navigating the blight. This one a stretch, but I thought of the song Old MacDonald. And finally, while Arthur is climbing up the chains to Yorick, he references Jack and the Beanstalk. I'm sure there are other references that I missed as well. Could this be nothing? Absolutely. But there are just enough of these fairy tale references that it could reveal something deeper. Does it have to do with Azathoth and his reality dream? Is it where the ones keeping Azathoth asleep tell him bedtime stories? Unlikely, but I thought it was interesting. One last thing. Queen, if you're reading this, can you tell Vol he's really cool? And Vol, if you're reading this, can you tell Queen she is really cool? I need to cover my bases, and you guys are great. Thank you, Ajax.
Aww.
You're very cool as well.
Yeah,
That was so cute.
That was very sweet. And I loved how granular Ajax got about the different fairy tales being referenced, especially the rat catcher as the Pied Piper. I did not clock that, but that's a very cool analogy.
Yeah, and I also was noticing fairy tale vibes that started with Rapunzel and then worked their way down. I definitely think there's something to that. I wonder how much of it is intentional, and I wonder how much of it is like kind of one of those things where you're bound to run into references, but how many references can you accidentally run into before it's a pattern? I don't know. I think it's very cool.
Well, and because, Harlan keeps brushing back against this idea that all creations end up in the dark world, like some twisted version of a creation of a story, even like fictional things, it seems. I think that inherently these like very classic tales would end up being part of the framework of the dark world,
Yeah, I agree. And I also think it would be a very interesting take on what horror would be for Arthur, taking fairy tales or bedtime stories that he's obviously familiar with from his time with Thoreau and the Three Billy Goats Gruff and all of that, and warping them to be kind of this awful version of hell. We've heard before that the dark world really is just imitating what reality and life has been doing, and the structures that are there, and these kind of failed iterations of what a farmhouse might be like and stuff like that. And I think it would be very cool if the dark world was like, oh, fairy tales, I can do fairy tales, watch this.
Right. I have two things to say. First off, if you like twisted fairy tales or like dark like horror takes on fairy tales, you gotta watch Dimension 20's Never After campaign. It is so good, and Brennan Lee Mulligan hits just these amazing, twisted fairy tale beats. But second, I haven't had a chance to mention this yet in this episode, but we got a butcher mention that came out of left field, and I loved that was connected with this fairy tale theming that seems to be sort of running throughout.
His banjo strumming underneath his mention absolutely plucked my little heartstrings. I was like, are we going to see him? Is he going to be here? And then I thought, like, no, not right now. That's so stupid. Why would we see him? But also, like, the fact that I don't know, I think Malevolent has connected me deeper with musical theming than any other medium ever, because now I notice all of my reactions to hearing the music. It's not just the mention, it's the banjo strumming. And I'm like, oh, there he is. He's back there. And I got really excited. Yeah.
Hydrus in the chat says he's got to come back. Lilith and Kane both mentioned him. And you know what? Could be.
Maybe.
But also in that moment, Arthur says, do you think there's a giant up there? And John just says, yes.
Yes.
I thought that was really funny.
I also thought that was funny. I loved that John was just like, you know what? Fucking why not?
Yeah.
I also want to say, yes, Vol is absolutely being paid by Dropout, because Vol is Dropout's biggest shill.
Yep, I totally am. But I have shared my account with I think 10 people at this point. Sorry, Dropout.
So I can't even complain. But Dropout is great. Go watch Dropout. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's do.
Hello, Autopsiers. My name is Gogoat. I use any pronouns, and wow, what a chapter. Cried twice, Yorick is back as a massive isopod. John and Arthur are laughing for the first time in a while. I voted to tell Arthur that she was here, but Booth John seemed to be implying that saying she wasn't was the truth, so I'm actually glad that didn't win now. I'm glad that Arthur isn't going to search for her, even if the way he's thinking about it isn't letting go, like what the manager said. Although, I do personally think that Fro is still in the Dark World. But I guess we'll find out about that later. Something that's been really interesting to me for like the whole of the Dark World episodes is, despite the fact that it's literally death incarnate, it sort of seems to be made of living things. The tower covered in vines, everything being birthed from the ground. Mountains described as looking like hardened skin or like a spine emerging from a buried beast. And of course, Isopod City. I just love that so much. It's so cool.
Thank you, Gogoat, for the submission. I really liked that. And I also think that's a very good observation because it has been very full of quote unquote life in a very corrupted and strange alien way where it's almost like it's birthing the dead.
Yeah. It is really interesting that there's so much there's so many descriptions of like sort of organic things in this place that is supposed to be full of death. That is very, very interesting.
Yeah, I love that.
But I also love that they were glad that Arthur wasn't going to be distracted by trying to find Fro in the Dark World because of, the choice that we made, it seems. But I really liked that the episode addresses that concern that so many of the patrons had. I always love it when we have like a concern and then it actually gets addressed in the episode, because Arthur says even if he could find Fro, even if she was in the Dark World, he wouldn't stop for that. He would keep going so that he could stop Cain, so that he could provide a better world for her. And I think that is a relief in a way, because it was something that it was one of the things that people were arguing, like, we can't say that Fro's in the Dark World because it'll distract Arthur and he'll go on this, wild goose chase trying to find her instead of stopping Cain.
Right, I do remember that, and I also want to point out that one of my favorite things to point out, which is that Arthur, so early on in his monologue, says that he is too apathetic, and John argues that he's never known him to be apathetic.
I love that.
And Arthur insists that Fro deserves the best version of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go on to find out that John has killed all other versions of Arthur. Which, first of all, yes, is very depressing. But also, second of all, kind of is also sweet, because if you think about it, that does mean that Arthur is the best version of himself he can possibly be right now.
I mean,
maybe this is not...
It's kind of fucked
this
up,
is not,
sure.
It's not, when we talk about the best version of ourselves, we, here, not fictional, are talking about the best version of ourselves very literally, where we're not talking about another timeline or universe. And that's how I'm thinking of it, because, you are only as good as you are right now. You can be better in the future, but, Arthur has made a lot of progress, has moved a lot in his journey and coming to accept everything. And we saw him, come to grips with the fact that he didn't deserve to die because of what happened.
Right.
And that's huge. That was a huge thing for Arthur to come over. And I think that it might say something about the fact that, you can't go back. You can't get another version of yourself to be better for your kid, or, you can't go backwards. You can only move forward. And I think the idea that Arthur is the only version of himself now, and he has to be better for his idea of Fro, but he has to be better for something. Like, he has to keep going for something, and it can't be Fro because he doesn't have Fro. He's not going to get Fro. So, what now? And I really feel like that's what this is all culminating toward, in getting Arthur to accept that you have to make peace with that loss. You have to... because even now he's fighting for Fro, who is not here,
right,
and can never be made happy, and will not be. It's not an achievable goal. Arthur is not living for right now. He's living for an idea that is not possible. And I think we're really gonna have to come and see him get to terms with the fact that you can't go back.
I definitely think that is going to be in part what Arthur has to let go of.
Yeah, and I know people have been speculating a lot about can you let go and what that might mean. And I think it's going to be multi-layered.
Yeah,
I think it's
for
going to be
sure.
both John and Arthur. I think it's going to be Farrow. I think it's going to be everything. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a multitude of things. But I do think a large part of it is going to have to be Arthur letting go of Farrow being the center of his everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Shall we listen to another?
Let's do.
Hey, Autumn again, and first off, I was so fucking right. Yes, I'm using this opportunity to gloat about how right I was that John killed the majority of the other Arthurs. I'm not above such pettiness, but seriously, think of the implications. As I said way back, the John Kane parallels are going so hard, not to mention the fact that all my Season 3 theories are confirmed. Just as Arthur takes out his anger on nearly John, or Yellow, emotionally, John does so on the Ulthers physically, and it's making me ill. Ooh. Back to the other stuff that happened in the part, though. I had to pause and gather myself after I heard Yorick. I've missed my autistic son. And the Dollmaker? It's interesting they seem to be our salvation after all that we've heard of them. They've been painted as a pretty sinister figure, though I trust Yorick's word over the Ratcatchers, regardless of how much I love a good plague Dr. Mask.
Vol, did you want to add anything before I hit the next one, or should we just roll into it?
I was just gonna say, I think it kind of blew my mind when Autumn mentioned the Season 3 parallels of Arthur abusing Yellow and meanwhile John is in the dark world abusing Arthur's. Oh my god, that makes me ill.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That is painful.
But yeah, we can listen to the other half now.
Yeah, let's listen to the other half.
Holy shit, though, they're going to be separated. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, of course, it's what they've both wanted, but I'm going to seriously miss their codependence, and I think they will too. There's nothing as intimate as being within the mind of another, and I think they'll both miss that bond deeply. For John, though, I'm personally punching the air. I'm so fucking glad he has a monstrous body, because I feel like it's deeply important to remind him that you can be a human whatever your appearance may be. He's still scared of the monster he can become, but I feel like if he's ever to truly feel happy, he has to accept that part of himself. Humanity isn't just empathy and love, it's bitterness, jealousy, hatred even. What makes him human are the emotions that drive his actions, as opposed to the apathy that he described the king suffered from. As for Arthur, I desperately hope he stays blind. This isn't me being vindictive, it's because Arthur's blindness is very meaningful to me personally, and I feel like if it was just magically fixed, it tears away the kinship I feel for a character that I share a disability with. I want John to still be there for him, even if it's outside his body, to still unquestioningly aid him, and for Arthur to adapt to this new arrangement with his help. I'm giving hope from Coda that this is the case, but Harlan Guthrie, please? There's no way in God's green earth that what I say is going to change anything, but please, it would mean a lot to me specifically. Anyways, that about wraps up this clusterfuck of a note I have for an absolute fucking beast of a chapter. Have a good autopsy.
Autumn, I love your submissions. Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you put into words what I really keep failing to say, which is that I think I was so, not like vehemently against John getting a body, but I like kind of wasn't looking forward to it because I really want John to accept who he is without having a change to his body, because that's really something that we as humans have to deal with. Like, I mean, and Vol, maybe you can speak to this more than I can, but like who you are and the body that you inhabit are two separate things. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we are all on our own separate journeys to make those two things mesh in different ways. And I think having John go back into a body that he feels represents a dark and monstrous part of himself and learn how to deal with that means so much more to me than him getting the body that he would feel more ideally at home in or like more comfortable with because it's just different from what he left behind. To me, it represents more of the concept they were talking about during their encounter with the witch, where John was saying like, I'm not human, but and I never will be, and I'm not the king in yellow and I never will be, but those are both like, those two things can exist at the same time.
Right.
And like, I am my own thing and I don't I can't leave behind and forget about what I once was. And I feel like giving him a body that's different from the one he used to inhabit would be directly going against the idea of him saying that he can't leave behind what he was.
Right. No, I think you put that really beautifully about how everyone is on their own path to make their inner self and their presentation mesh in a way that feels authentic and that feels right. And I think that it's really interesting to consider the idea of John having to return to what he refers to as Haster's body, which I thought was a really interesting, like, separating detail, that he still sees that body as Pastor, as the King in Yellow. And I think that it could be really powerful for him to take that form again and learn to accept it and learn how he can change that form to better suit who he thinks John is. It's really interesting, and I definitely I'm here for Monster Body John for sure.
Yeah, and I know that that is different for everybody, like the way that you read this concept and the way that you feel about how this story goes might speak to the way that, like, for example, John being a trans allegory and all of these messages and themes in Malevolent. And I just want to put out there that, like, whenever I say something like, oh, I don't want John to have a body, it's not because I want to invalidate your or anyone else's experience of, like, your trans journey or anything remotely related to, like, the themes of the chapter. I'm having my own journey with the narrative and it's going to be different from everybody else's. And that's just, like, kind of a symptom of being out loud in fandom, is that, when I say I don't want John to have a body, some people may interpret that as like, oh, well, you don't want gender affirming care, which is like a wild extrapolation. My feelings about the narrative and how I want it to go are completely independent from things that I feel about, like, real world issues.
Yeah. Fish in the chat says Jonder affirming care.
Jonder affirming care. We have
Beautiful.
3 more messages to get to, so I'm going to push us forward.
No, I need to address something that Autumn said in their message because it's really, really important. Autumn mentioned that they really hope that Arthur doesn't get his eyesight back and that they hope he's not magically healed. And I think that it's really, I really hope that Arthur does stay blind because, for the reasons that Autumn said themselves, because I think that it's important to have that rep and to not magically erase it.
Yeah, and I think that it would make sense. I mean, narratively, it could make sense for Arthur to remain blind even after John is out of his eyes, because we really don't know anything about like the mechanic behind why Arthur's blind. That's never been explained, and it never will be, I don't think, very intentionally, because it's, first of all, I mean, we all need to acknowledge first and foremost, Arthur being blind at the start of this podcast wasn't meant to be anything but the tool that the podcast was, like, driven by.
Right.
Because it was a cool mechanic for the podcast to go through, and I maintain it's one of the best, most coolest and innovative ways to do a podcast ever.
Yeah.
Everybody I've talked to in real life who doesn't know about Malevolent is like, I wish I had come up with that. That's really smart. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I have like a little cousin. He's, by little, I mean he's like 22. I was like, wow, that's really smart. Damn.
Yeah.
I wish I had thought of that. Like, he was really into it.
That's cool.
And so, like, I think it's one of the main staples of just the way the story's told. But I also agree that it's really valuable as good representation. I just think that it wasn't, it was kind of fallen into rather than intentional at first. And I think now it should just be picked up as a through line.
Yeah.
I also would be disappointed if Arthur was just magically cured. Not because I personally have a connection to, blindness or having low vision, but because I just think in general that's a really difficult thing to pull off narratively in a way that feels satisfying.
Yeah.
And I think it would just be kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Oh, suddenly Arthur is all fixed. And,
Right.
That hasn't been an option this entire time because,
Right.
and
right.
so,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's listen to the next one.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Key, she, her pronouns. I adored this chapter. I think that's a common sentiment. I really liked the Bone Throne and the Bone Cathedral. I was really excited. I really wanted to see that. And I'm just very happy that we got to see it. I'm especially interested in the whole idea of it all being Arthur's bones and why John killed all of those Arthurs. There are so many options. I know there's some people talking about how Cain might have ordered him to kill all of those Arthurs as part of bringing him to the bargaining table, but I don't think that. I think it's more likely that John just killed all of those Arthurs on his own out of anger or grief, but we'll see. I was also pretty affected by John's reaction to seeing his old body. Like, he doesn't even want to get close to that thing. I can only imagine what's going to happen if he has to go back into that body. I really hope the Dollmaker can help him with that, but
Thank you for your submission, Key. I loved hearing from you because it's always so fun to debate with you.
Yeah, they do bring up a good point about some people have been speculating about whether John could get a body from the Dollmaker as well. And I think that's interesting, but I also agree that I'm pretty sure somebody mentioned that we might have to sacrifice some part of Arthur's body, perhaps the very interesting scar on his arm, to get a body from the Dollmaker. And so I wonder what kind of sacrifice John would have to make to get his own body, and whether he even has. I mean, I guess he's got his old corpse. He could be like, "Here, you can have this. Can I get a new one?"
Do you do a trade-in program? Right. Can I get a rebate, or can we get an upgraded model? No, I think it's interesting that people are even speculating about John and a body, because to me, it doesn't feel like we're going to have a choice. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any getting out of putting John back in Hastur.
I'm really
for lack
curious.
Of a better word.
I'm really curious to see whether that's going to be a vote or not.
And I also don't know how much input we're going to get on what kind of body Arthur gets, because they could be votes, and maybe they could even be pretty easy to do, because like I keep saying, it's going to get harder to do votes as the story comes to a close. Mm-hmm. So maybe it really won't matter, and it'll be like, do we want Arthur to have two left hands? Like, maybe, I mean, because, that won't too much affect the story, so maybe it'll be fine. But like, I mean, it's interesting. I will be very curious to see what we're actually allowed to be voting on as we go, because we're all speculating that we'll have anything to say about bodies.
Yeah. No, instead of Twitch plays Pokemon, it's Patreon plays Monster Maker. That would be so funny.
Boy, don't give us that power. It will not go the way Harlan wants it to go. Shall we listen to the next message?
Let's do.
Anyway, the actual chapter. Two things I'm wondering. One, John said that he got almost all of the Arthurs. Did he miss someone? Did Darkther evade him? I was always under the impression that John did all this for Cain, for their deal. Did Cain insist he leave Darkther alone? His favourite Artie? What happened there? 2. What would the effect of being one of the only Arthurs left have on Arthur? Because those other Arthurs aren't dead, they're gone. Death for the dead. Obviously the result wouldn't be the same as Cain, because he's an eldritch god and the piano theory thing that he explained in Intermezzo. But that's still a unique thing that now both Arthur and Cain have in common. Surely that's going to come up again. That has to mean something. Anyway, that's my note done. Bye-bye, autopsiers.
That was Gogoat's second part, just so everybody knows. Thank you, Gogoat.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. The way that you phrased it as Arthur and Cain having something in common really stuck in my craw. Especially because I have seen some theories floating around about whether, like, Arthur is going to become something more than human in the Dark World. Very
straight up thought you were about to say Arthur is Cain, or Cain is Arthur, and I was like,
Arthur becomes Cain.
Good Lord! And
Arthur
begins anew.
Arthur becomes an avatar for Nyarlathotep.
Oh God. No, thank you. Yeah, I think it's always been fascinating the way Kane sees similarities between him and Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
He's very clearly attached to Arthur in a very unique way, and he points it out all the time.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. I am eager to learn more about why Arthur and I mean, we still
Yeah.
have a whole lot to learn, like Arthur's parents and where the fuck is Lilith, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that the whole reason the Dollmaker even came up is because of the scratch on his arm that came from, we're guessing, Lilith. So maybe we'll have to decide. Ooh, I'm throwing out a prediction here. Maybe we'll have to decide whether or not to give up that piece of Lilith to the Dollmaker
Ooh.
to do something or get something.
Yeah.
Maybe that will be Lilith will
Hmm.
be involved in the body vote.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm really, fingers crossed, hoping that maybe not in the next episode, but I do hope that we get some of Arthur's reflection on what it feels like to be one of the few remaining iterations of Arthur. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah.
And our final voice submission also touches on this.
Let's play it.
Hi, my name is Rebel. I use she, they, and I'm gonna be very quick about my thoughts on the existentialism that comes with Arthur and being the only one version of himself. Because I mentioned how this is very similar to York and also John, and that's why they kind of bond very well, because they are the only versions of themselves. But I think it comes with like a genuine tragedy, which it is insanely devastating to know that there is no other version of yourself that you can find comfort in. There is no other version of, Furrow's father or Bella's husband or Parker's best friend. Like, there is only ever one Arthur Lester, and maybe you can find pride in that. Maybe you can be proud of that. Like, I am the only one version of me, so I get to choose who I am. But then there is also there is only one version of me. I can only ever do this once. There is one life. There is one flame, and when he dies, it's out. It's over. You will never hear the name, the soul Arthur Lester be reignited ever again, and it is horrifically tragic, and I'm wondering if we will see Arthur have this kind of crisis over it.
Yeah, thank you, Rebel. I love your submission, and it's a really good point. The isolation of being the only you, and that is kind of how we live our lives right now.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I'm the only me.
Yeah. Thanks for the absolutely devastating message, Rebel. That was really good. What stuck out to me about your message is the way that you talked about Arthur not necessarily as himself, but also the roles he's played in his life. Oh man, I think that that's such an interesting way to look at a character as not just Arthur the individual, but how he relates to the people in his lives.
Yeah, because all of those people in all of those iterations lost somebody.
Yeah.
That will never stop being true. I mean, there's infinite universes of, well, not infinite obviously, but quite a few universes, and anything's possible, and that means that a massive amount of loss has been felt by Arthur passing in every timeline, and it's a very overwhelming thing to think about. I mean, there are probably timelines out there where like Furrow is an orphan because
Yeah.
she lived and her parents didn't.
Yeah.
And like that's a whole thing. And then, Parker and his family and wondering where Arthur went.
Oh.
And I mean,
That's
lots
true
of
even
pain
in
and
Malevolent
suffering.
canon.
Yeah, yeah.
The poor Yang
Lots of
family.
pain and suffering at the passing of one person. And
Yeah.
I think it might also reframe Arthur's value on himself. Like
Mm-hmm.
the ripple that you cause,
Yeah.
the effect that you have in other people's lives, and how special and important you are. You think that you being around is just your, like, it's kind of, it doesn't impact anybody else.
Like it's
and,
inconsequential to other people around you,
Yeah.
but like that couldn't be further from the truth.
Absolutely. Even Arthur, who was socially isolating himself and deeply depressed and going through such a hard time, still his disappearance affected people and things, and will continue to do that, and did that in every universe. And he's going to have to confront that pretty much right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, and on that cheerful note,
Yeah. Before we go, how do you think Arthur's going to react? Like your gut feeling, what do you
Oh,
really think Arthur's reaction is going to be when we open up?
oh, hmm.
Or let me put it in a different way and give you more of a broad opening. How do you think the next chapter is going to open?
I think that Arthur is going to ask why. At least that's what I want him to do. I want him to ask why.
Interesting. Okay. And I think
Yeah, what do you think?
I think there's two possibilities. I think we're either going to open on a flashback with John,
Ooh.
or I think we're going to have John filling empty silence pretty desperately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good call. This is actually like a perfect narrative moment for a flashback.
I think getting to see John do what he did and the mindset that he was in,
Yeah.
either that, like that would be very cool. But I also want to say that does allow us as listeners to sympathize more with John. And I don't know if that's what Harlan wants right now.
Right, right. But I think, I mean, narratively speaking, from just like totally from a storytelling standpoint, after leaving us on that cliffhanger, it would be so like Harlan and good
Yeah.
writing to then like tease out a little bit longer before we actually get any more conversation or any more reveals about that directly in that moment. So it'll be interesting.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. I hate being right. I'm going to hate being right. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining. My God, that's so many people in chat tonight. I
Yeah.
really appreciate everybody showing up and showing out. And I'm really excited to keep doing this. But man, the longer we go on, the closer the end of Malevolent comes. It's making me
Don't
sad.
say it. Don't say it.
Every time we do an episode of Autopsy, I'm like, cherish this right now because you don't have a lot more left.
We'll put this in a time capsule. Malevolent is not over yet. We're putting it in a time capsule.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, guys. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, of course, to Harlan Guthrie, the sole creator of Malevolent. Without his labor of love for a story he wants to tell, we wouldn't be here. To join the live recording, submit your own message, get in touch with me, and more, visit linktree/Malevolent Autopsy. The official Invictus Discord server is open to the public and includes a channel just for Malevolent Autopsy fans. We also have our own private, patrons-only channel. Finally, thank you to Mizra, Nikki, Vol Control, and everyone who has helped create and maintain Malevolent Autopsy. These friends are also volunteers who donate time and energy to help put together this love letter to Malevolent. The horrors persist.
But so do we.